Elon, making millions a year.
I'm going to mute you if you just keep ranting and saying wrong things over and over again. He did not make cash. There's no income.
I said his net worth.
No, his net worth is paper that exists in a nebulous concept in the mind.
Or, let me finish so I can make sure that I understand. For specific people that make an amount of money that you deem as enough, you want specific tax law for individuals specifically because they make too much. That's unconstitutional, you psychopath.
In this one, Tim Pool goes berserk on one of his employees when they mention the loopholes that billionaires are using to skirt the tax system to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. And this topic triggers Tim Pool because he knows better than his employee. And, you know, it's just that typical Democrat talking point that the billionaires need to pay their fair share when it comes to taxes. Although the reality is the billionaires are the ones that risk their money the most. They're the ones that hire the majority of Americans. And being a former contractor and somebody that works on a 1099, essentially myself, I tend to agree with Tim Pool's point here that there is no skirting the law with loopholes. It's just filing taxes the way the law forces you to do it. And this is a good one because I'm tired of hearing people say that billionaires don't pay their fair share, that they need to pay more, and they really are just completely out of touch with reality in that if billionaires are forced to pay more than they already do, what they do is they pick up their businesses and completely leave the country, thus paying zero taxes on their income to the American tax system, which to me, we're all overtaxed as it is, and the government wastes way too much. We've seen this over the last couple weeks with Elon Musk and Doge exposing USAID waste, money going to things that none of us believe the money should be going to. So let's have a look at Tim Pool going completely berserk on one of his own employees live on Timcast IRL.
It's let me explain it like this. I don't actually think it's fair necessarily to call them loopholes. Before I owned a business with a lot of employees, loophole seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
When you actually get into all of the taxes, there's no loopholes. There's literally just what the law is. Because the IRS agents know exactly when not a billionaire is going to pay. It's not a loophole. They're just like, oh, you don't got to pay taxes on this for this thing. So the way it's phrased by activists, particularly on the left, they're like, billionaires use loopholes to not pay taxes. And I'm like, when you claim Amazon paid no taxes, what you're basically saying is that they reinvested the funds or their margins were slim and reinvested. The IRS knows that. So it's not a loophole. It's literally the purpose of tax law. So the funny thing I hear from a lot of people is that if we lower taxes, you'll create more jobs and things like that. And that's technically true, but technically not true. There's a happy medium and you have to know where it is. So if I was told, hey, they're increasing the corporate tax rate to, 70%, I'd be like, wow, okay, well, we better reinvest that as much as we can. So what would we do here? We'd hire as many people as we could because we're going to lose all that money if we don't. So it's not necessarily true that lower taxes means more hiring or the other way around. It just really depends. But you'll hear from a lot of these activists. They will say whatever they need to say to confuse you. They will say billionaires don't pay taxes because it's a loophole. And I'm like, no, Elon Musk isn't paying billions of dollars in taxes because he doesn't actually have cash. That's not a loophole. Okay, well, he made X amount of profit last year. And I'm like, and it's locked up in stock.
Wait, but
stocks.
We don't have to call it a loophole, but it is a sort of workaround that is an issue with the ultra wealthy. And well, whatever the law that there are laws created that allows them to pay much less than even an ordinary person does in taxes. And I'll explain to you how it goes. I'm not talking about Amazon, the corporation, but Jeff Bezos, for example, was famously paid something like only $83,000 while he worked there, but the shares and his net worth was a lot higher than that. So while he was paying a lower marginal tax, his net worth was like in the hundreds. I understand it's not cash, but
all right, hold on. You want to play a game?
No. I don't support this, and I don't even support a wealth tax. But I'm saying these are ways.
It's not a loophole.
It's just a generic term.
There are laws made for the ultra wealthy That's such
No,
that it allows
that
them
is
to pay less taxes than a much poorer person.
That's absolutely not true.
Which part of it isn't?
Absolutely not true. The first of all, the wealthy pay substantially more taxes on average than if you look at the curve, it's a parabolic curve. The higher the income, the more taxes they pay in total. I think, what is it, like the top 1% pay something like 47%
Jeff
of all
Bezos
taxes?
Jeff
Bezos pays the same income tax that every American pays. He then pays capital gains tax, and the activists argue that capital gains should be income, and that by not paying the same amount on capital gains as you do on your income, that's a loophole. That's not correct.
Well, as I understand, he hasn't sold a lot of his stocks when he was
allowed
to. Well, when he was employed there.
Okay, first of all,
now he has.
Stock is not cash and can't be spent.
Yep.
So you can't claim that he should be taxed on something that's not money. But let's play this game. I have in my hand a tech deck fingerboard that I put together myself. Now, how much do you think someone will be willing to pay for Tim Pool's fingerboard that he actually uses during the show and does ollies with? What do you think?
$350.
$350? Okay.
$5.56.
It's now Elad's. Elad, you got to pay the government $100 taxes income because I gave you that. Simply by that being yours, that was cash. That was a transaction. That's how the taxes work. You now owe money on that. That's income.
I guess I'd be in the hole. But Tim, let me ask you. So Jeff Bezos was getting paid $80,000 a year while he was the CEO of Amazon, and he was worth something like hundreds of millions of dollars because of Amazon stock, and billions. It depends on
not
the time.
Cash and can't be
I understand. How do you think he should only owe taxes on
Yes.
83? Calm down, Phil. So you think Jeff Bezos should only owe whatever?
Okay, Elad, how would he pay taxes on money he doesn't have?
I just think there's that's
me ask
the
you a question.
workaround. So if you have above a certain amount, I think people argue that you should be forced to sell a small amount.
No!
Oh my God, Elad, please.
That's the argument. That's not what.
Elad, stop. Just stop. Calm down. Let me explain. If Jeff Bezos could, which he legally can't because there's fiduciary responsibility to a company, meaning, one, he has a contract that bars her from selling stock. Okay, unless a certain threshold of stock value is met. Two, if he dumps stock, the stock price collapses and it could cause the company to spiral into a free fall. The stock is used to generate revenue for the company to operate if they're not generating substantial revenues. So if Jeff Bezos was ordered by the government to violate his contract and sell stock so that he could cover the wealth tax they put on it, the company would enter free fall. Everyone would dump the stock overnight. It would become worthless. And then paradoxically, Jeff Bezos' net worth would be $100 million. And then he wouldn't owe those taxes in the first place.
The issue at hand here is that there's clearly an issue with how we're taxing people like this.
And that's where I'll agree with Elad here, but not in the manner that he's saying it. When he claims that people aren't being taxed properly, I completely agree. We're all paying way too much. I hope Trump can actually replace the IRS and income tax with these tariffs that he's been talking about. And the other thing that Tim Pool failed to mention there was that if Jeff Bezos is forced to sell his stock, he's literally losing stock, right? So let's look at it this way. You own 100 acres, right? Just for example. And you have to pay property tax on that. But the government keeps telling you that your land is worth more and more and more every single year, to the point where you cannot pay the property taxes because the land does not generate the income to justify the value that the government has assessed the value to be. So then you have to sell a portion of your land, we'll call it 10 acres, to pay the property tax that you owe on your remaining 90 acres. So they're essentially forcing people to sell what is theirs strictly due to taxation. And that is something that should never happen in the United States, plain and simple. And that's the way that I see this when Elad is up here telling Tim Pool that Jeff Bezos should be required to sell some of his stock every single year, thus netting him less and less stock in these companies as he progresses along through life.
I think Jeff Bezos should only owe money on his $83,000 of income while he was working there, and not anything on any of the hundreds of millions of dollars that he had in stock and net worth. There's a serious issue there, because there are people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars who are, again, paying more than Jeff Bezos was at the time.
I gotta stop
and
you
if you don't think there's any issue with somebody like that paying significantly less than, again, like people like millionaires, people making millions a year.
I'm going to mute you if you just keep ranting and saying wrong things over and over again. He did not make cash. There's no income.
I said his net worth.
His net worth is paper that exists in a nebulous concept in the mind. Do you know what paper value means?
How much is Jeff Bezos worth?
I think it's $170 billion.
Okay, and when he was CEO of Amazon, what does net worth mean?
What does net worth mean?
It means your culmination of your assets.
Okay, and where does the value of those assets come from?
The demand for them.
And what happens if the government says we are seizing your stock?
The stock value will go down.
And then what does he owe? Nothing?
He'll owe some. The issue is that he should be paying more. The amount
more. What? He has no cash.
Okay,
Bro.
I think he's purposefully setting up his assets in such a way that this will be the net result. And this is what people are talking about when people like Raymond were saying the loophole.
If he
this is the loophole.
Stock,
the loophole is the laws that
sells the stock, he has to pay on the gain, on the realized gain of all of the cash he brings in.
Sure, but Tim, you understand that he's purposefully taking a low. He was taking a low income on purpose. He was taking a low salary on purpose to be able to affect this loophole, and that is the issue at hand. No, he purposefully set it up this way so he would
fundamentally misunderstand how any of the corporate structure works in this country. Let's try this. Let's slow down. What is a C corp?
There's like a C corp and an S corp. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact.
You don't know why they exist. Okay, first,
one's for an individual, I believe, and one's for a group. But you could go ahead.
Right. So the issue here is, if you don't understand something as basic as like they have B corps now, LLCs, an S corp technically is an LLC, a C corp is as well. There's special classifications. If you don't know what those mean, that's 101. Okay. So if you look to a CEO who's running a company and then you go, he should pay money on money he doesn't have, is what you're saying, because the company he runs is worth a lot of money. We have a problem here where logic has failed. My point is, let's start with, you don't even know what a C Corp is, so let's not play the game of you think Jeff Bezos intentionally took an action to obfuscate his wealth and avoid paying taxes.
You don't think that's what he's doing here?
No.
That he did? Okay.
That is applying malintent to a man who is probably just abiding by tax law as he's instructed by his lawyer.
In order to achieve what? The loophole.
It's not a loophole when you are doing what the law tells you have to do.
Well, I think it's a distinction without a difference. They set up the law in such a way to act as a loophole. There's a loophole.
An individual is doing something maliciously, whereas what's actually happening is he called his lawyer and said, "How am I supposed to do this?" And they said, based on U.S. tax code 531C, you have to do this, you have to file this, and you have to pay yourself this. When I first started this company, my accountant told me, "Here's the range at which you can pay yourself." I said, "Okay. Then I'll just choose a number." We have profits for this company. Profits tax at a lower margin than employment. So CEOs want to pay themselves less, but there's an expected market value. Here's another thing I don't think you understand. We cannot pay people above market rate. You can try to justify it. You're opening yourself up to an audit. I go to my accountant and I say, "Hey, we got this guy, he's a big talent. I want to pay him, $1 million. They say, "What's his job?" "Oh, he's a musician." They'll say, "Do session musicians get paid $1 million?" "Not often." "Okay, you're going to have to justify to the IRS when they audit you why you're paying someone so high above market. You shouldn't do that." I say, "Oh, see, because the tax code works like this." Okay, it's not a loophole when the government passes a law that makes you do these things. The loophole is a term used by activists to go after people who are wealthy and claim they're doing something maliciously when they're doing what they're contractually obligated to do or what the government requires them to do. If the law exists and is solidified, and then a company forms and they say, "How do we create a pay structure for the person who runs this company?" "Well, based on the law, we have to do these 10 things." "Okay." And then you come out and go, "Aha, he's cheating by using a loophole." And he's like, "What do you mean? The law was there before we started the company, and my lawyers told me that's how I had to do it."
I think there's an issue with the way our laws in this country are set up to tax, in particular, the ultra wealthy, the top 100, which are in a different scenario than even the top 10,000 people. So there's an issue.
So you're more like a communist.
No.
Well, hold on. You think we should tax people on cash they don't have, because there is an ascribed market value in the imagination.
I don't know the exact solution for how to tax people who are in the top 10 amount of wealth, but if you look at the amount they pay compared to the amount that the top 10,000
It's substantially
earners
higher.
are, is no, like the top 10 have worked.
You are wrong. It is substantially higher.
What you're talking about,
my understanding it's not.
What you're talking about would mean that people that are pensioners that are on fixed income.
I'm talking about top teners.
Stop talking over people. Let me finish. Because what you're talking about is talking about taxing unrealized gains. Is that?
I don't know how else to explicitly say. I'm talking about the top earners and top net worth individuals in our society.
Okay, I got to cut in real quick here one more time. Elon keeps mentioning the top 10 people need to be taxed differently because they're so much richer than the rest of us. But let me ask you a question. What do those rich people who are very intelligent, what do they do when the government passes a law like that? They diversify their assets, right? And then they drop out of the top 10. Or they straight up leave the country. So Elon's thought process here is just completely off base. He hasn't thought it through to the end. He's just repeating the things that sounded good to him, probably inside of some Democratic echo chamber, because you don't really hear people on the right as much claiming that the billionaires aren't paying their fair share. I feel like the right, the MAGA base, are more educated in this, and it's probably because the majority of those people are business owners and working themselves, and they just have a better understanding because they're actually going through the tax-paying process themselves, rather than just crying from their parents' basements that the billionaires aren't paying enough taxes and their fair share. And it's like I said, nobody should be required to sell their assets in order to pay their taxes.
That's who I'm talking about.
Elad, stay with me here. The method to do what you're...
Phil, you could have carve-outs. If we're talking about specific people, we could have the law set up in a way where pensioners aren't.
Here's a Jeff Bezos law and an Elon Musk law, and you're an insane person.
Let's just rein it in. Okay. Elad votes.
What?
Well, you know I abstain because I try to have
thank God.
journalistic integrity. But if we do want to wrap it back around to this Doge story, I think it's interesting which stories a Doge cutting, what news stories of Doge cutting we choose to pay attention to, because, you know, on the left, they'll focus on stories like, oh, in the middle of Africa, they're cutting healthcare that saved tens of thousands of Africans, and then they talk about that, and they talk about how, oh, they're cutting different people, different parts.
Yes. I drew you a picture. Maybe the picture.
Zoom in more.
Maybe the picture can help.
Vision.
This is a graph made by ChatGPT of total taxes paid by income bracket. Why? That's interesting. Total real taxes paid in billions by income bracket, and somehow the wealthiest individuals are paying the overwhelming majority of all taxes.
What percent, I can't see the number, is the wealthiest?
It's not percent, it's $1 million plus.
Okay, I'm talking about like the top net worth individuals, which are different than the top 1%.
That's included. What was Bezos' income per year? Was it 1 million?
No,
was it 1 million?
It was less, but his net worth was in the hundreds of millions.
Elad, it was $1 million.
Okay.
It was 1 million.
So if you look for a more specific graph,
what's 12 divided by 1? What's 1 million divided by 12?
You tell me.
Is it around $80,000?
Okay, Tim.
If Bezos was intentionally paying himself $1 million, plus he was getting an additional $1 million in benefits. Okay. He was getting a $1 million bonus plus $1 million salary.
This isn't talking about like the specific details that I'm trying to explain to you guys about top net worth individuals that are getting bumped into the top 1%.
Everybody understands
so you could,
that you want taxes
but this graph
that are specific to the individual. You just said that.
You must not hear. I'm talking about the top 100 net worth individuals who have completely unique situations.
You're not articulating yourself clearly.
Wait,
you're saying you just said unique situations. That means you want targeted taxes.
So Jeff,
for. Let me finish so I can make sure that I understand. For specific people that make an amount of money that you deem as enough, you want specific tax law for individuals specifically because they make too much. That's unconstitutional, you psychopath. That's unconstitutional.
We have a progressive tax law already,
you
and
want
it's not
you want tax law aimed at people that will make people
No. We're going to move on.
Okay.
We're going to go to the next story, but I'm going to say this. Elad is simply just trying to say anything that gives him the correct position in the argument, even though nothing he said has even aligned with anything he said prior. Right? You just keep changing what you're saying.
No, you guys just aren't listening to what I'm saying. They're specific. I believe in a progressive tax rate, and specifically
let's go one point at a time. What is a progressive tax rate?
The more income that you have, the higher income that you have, the higher percentage that we tax you at.
And how does a progressive tax rate work?
The more income that you earn, there are different brackets. So let's say if you earn, I don't know, up to 50K, it'll be something like 15 to 20%. Then you go to 100K, it'll go up to like 20, 200K, 25. The issue is when
are you saying that if you pay 100K, you would have to pay 30,000 in taxes, but if you paid 50K, you'd pay 5,000 in taxes?
The issue is with the top individuals that I'm talking about specifically that don't pay taxes in a normal way.
And what does that mean, a normal way?
So again, people like Jeff Bezos, where their net worth is bound up in, again, what are some of the biggest companies in the world right now.
Do you have stock?
Yes, I do have stock.
Are you paying taxes on that stock?
When I sell, I do.
Oh, so Jeff Bezos should have to pay when he doesn't sell because...
No, but see, Tim, here's the issue. I'm not comparable to Jeff Bezos in any way. It doesn't make sense to tax me in any similar way that you're going to tax Jeff Bezos. So you're somebody who has...
Okay, all right, slow down.
Yeah, but that's my point.
Slow down. Okay, let's try this again. So you're saying that at a certain level of imagined wealth, that's what it's called, imaginary wealth. It's not there's real wealth and then imaginary. The value of stock is considered imaginary, and that's the actual term. So you believe that there should be a law that states at a level of imaginary wealth, we should take cash from you, real wealth.
So I'm not sure about the specific mechanisms of how the laws will be set up. I think there are issues with how we tax our top net worth individuals in this country. And I think that's plain and obvious.
What issue?
That they pay less than the people.
Well, hold on. I showed you the graph. They don't pay less.
All right. So again, I was telling you, this graph isn't specific enough. So the top 1% is over inclusive to like the top income earners in our country. So within the 1%, there's a 1% issue of the 1%ers.
Elon, you need to slow down. We don't need a higher bracket than $1 million income per year to show that the bracket of 1 million up to infinity pays substantially more taxes than all other income brackets. Despite the fact they make up 1% of tax of the tax base, they are paying somewhere around 60% of all taxes.
I think within the 1%, the 99% pays more, a lot more. The 1% of the 1% isn't paying their fair share, I guess.
That is incorrect.
Well, that's your opinion.
It's not an opinion. That's a fact.
You know that Elon
Musk, what do you pay, like 70 billion or something?
Elon
or 7
Musk
billion?
paid more taxes than any other human in history in, I think it was 2021 or 2022. He the impression that you have, Elon, the impression that you have is not actually reflective.
Yeah, I think you have a misunderstanding.
11 billion.
I literally tried to articulate your argument back to you, but you were too busy talking over me.
We're gonna go to the next. We're gonna go to the next story. I'll just wrap up by saying Elon Musk paid $11 billion cash taxes in 2021.
How much? 11 billion.
11 billion. More than any other person in human history. Okay, so your talking points are progressive leftist activist talking points. They're incorrect, but we're going in circles. Let's jump to the story from.
Man, that was good. And I gotta say, look, normal, everyday, average people should be able to understand this concept. Temple pulled up the graph that the people that make $1 million per year pay more taxes than every other bracket below them combined. Okay, so this argument that the billionaires, the millionaires need to pay their fair share is complete nonsense. I don't know why people on the left can't understand this simple concept. And I just can't understand why these people are so pro-government taxing everybody. They act like the government spends responsibly and does a good job and is accountable for every penny that they tax us of. We just saw Doge expose billions of dollars that USAID was sending overseas, basically just completely wasting it and not using our money to make Americans' lives better. Now, Democrats, I know they love to think that the government is doing everything responsibly, right? But just the reality is they're not. So can we please stop supporting more taxation of American people and start holding the government more accountable to spend properly what they do have? Maybe once they do that, we can start talking about adding new programs to it. But for now, we need Doge to cut off all of the wasteful spending, take an America First type of approach, and we'll all be better for it. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I know this one was longer than usual, but I loved this debate. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And if you did, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends, especially if you got a Democrat in your group chat. They definitely need to hear this. And quickly, I want to remind you that you can catch me live every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on this channel with the Jar Openers podcast. We've been having a good time over there lately, and I'd love to have you guys join us. And other than that, thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.